Historically, a pardon has been seen as an admission of guilt. It's part of it. So if they are pre-pardoned, then I would just formally just charge them all with insurrection and then say that they're pardoned from it. And then at the very least, that bars all of them from running for any public office again.
But what's your evidence? Because as far as I know, Marco Rubio wasn't involved in the fake elector scheme or January 6, 2021.
He's a part of, and he supports the current administration.
Participated in insurrection.
He participates in the current administration, and he's more or less a supporter. He's a cabinet member.
No, he's memeing, right? This is a meme. I think this is a meme.
Just to be clear, how far does that go down? So to
every single elected person in the Republican Party right now.
Sorry, did he say every elected Republican at every level? State level, there's approximately 5,400 state representatives, approximately 1,970 state senators, approximately 10,000 other statewide office holders. And it says at the local level, there's over 500,000 local elected officials. Why are we having like serious debates in my chat when this is all memes? Like, what the f are we doing?
When Democrats retake the Senate, the House, the White House, when we win, what should be done about those who are currently in power and those who have supported those who are currently in power? What should be done with them who have broken the law or hinted at wanting to break the law? All these things. Should we, for the good of the country, come together, move on, move forward? Or should we have a Nuremberg-style kind of trial and hold these people to account to the fullest extent of the law? We're going to talk about it today. We've got some great
Nuremberg trials for the Trump administration?
I think that there are two parts to it, three parts maybe. The first part is the insurrection for every single person involved in this administration, mainly for the point that none of the people that are supporting Trump now in office should be allowed to run for office ever again in the United States of America. That's the first thing. The easy way to do this also is if Trump starts pardoning everybody, well, if he's pardoning people, pardon is an admission of guilt, charge him with insurrection. You can charge him.
Is he memeing? Is that what this is? Is this a meme? I'm going to assume this is a meme.
Consider them pardoned, and now they've qualified for being charged, convicted, and they've been pardoned of the crime. Doesn't matter. The pardon doesn't get rid of the part of the 14th Amendment that would say you can't hold an office again, so fuck them. So that's number 1 and 2, okay? Number 3, the smallest criminal thing, investigate every single person that was part of this administration and get as much out into the open as possible. I think the important thing about stuff like Nuremberg, the important thing about these big public trials is there needs to be a public accounting of everything that's happened. And for whatever causes lead into people wanting to vote for Trump, they are absolutely fed into by the misinformation and by the historical rewriting of everything that's happened. And we need to be able to have an honest account of what's happened historically. Right now, half the country doesn't believe that Trump lost the 2020 election. Like, we can't go forward in an environment like that and simply
3 of spades. Cheers, buddy. Thank you. Thank you so much for 9 months.
Changing leadership.
Oh no, Driznar, thank you for the gifted sub.
And the Conservative Party is not going to undo all of the incorrect things that Republicans believe have happened. Trump was not a mistake. Like, Trump was a natural consequence of Republican demagoguery and Republican rhetoric and Republican strategy for the past 3 decades. It's no surprise we wound up here, and to act like it would be to ignore the fact that Trump 2 could come, right around the corner.
Okay, and does that educate everyone on everyone's position, or is everyone clear now? Can we move forward, or do we need further edification?
What is this music I'm hearing in the background? I think he has a game open in the background. Is that what's happening?
Maybe we'll get it as we continue. I'll ask a question if I can, please. Right. So, Stephen, hello.
It looks like he's playing a game. Is he playing? What's he playing? I hear something.
Hi. The last part of what you said talked about revealing the truth, right? Like correcting the record. And I'm certainly not against that. But like, it seems like you're specifically trying to correct the record for the Trump cult. Do you believe that?
Can I be a little nitpicky? It's a bit superficial. I think it's a little. Now I don't know why he does it, but like I think it's a little rude to play video games when you're having a conversation with somebody. That's my take on that. That's a hot take, but I also don't understand how he does it. Like, I can't divide my attention in that kind of way. I could not have a detailed conversation about politics. I could not have like a substantive debate about politics if I was playing a game at the same time. My mind does not work that way at all.
Public,
but it comes across as a bit dismissive. That's the vibe I get. It's a bit dismissive. I mean, I have diagnosed ADHD, and there's no way I could play a game and have a conversation with someone at the same time. You got some of you guys, the old school viewers will remember when I'm playing games, I don't interact with chat like at all because I get very immersed. So if I'm playing Call of Duty, especially Warzone or whatever, I would not interact with chat very much because I can only, the things that I focus my attention on, I get really intensely focused, and it's just really difficult for me to multitask in that kind of way, especially if I'm having like a substantive political debate.
The trials will actually do that.
Yeah, I think if the information is out there, I think it becomes much harder to ignore what's actually happened. Yeah, I think it helps.
Information's out there now. Right?
Not like in an easily accessible way. It's like buried behind PDFs and buried behind commissions and buried behind stuff that, one, it didn't get the full public attention that it deserves, and then two, the people who denied all of that information were rewarded by still being able to run for office and hold office. I think that if you do this mass like insurrection charge or whatever you have to do to get all these people to never be allowed to run for again, then there will be, going forward, probably more of an incentive to be like, well, fuck, maybe we shouldn't just lie blatantly about everything that's happening because there are going to be political consequences for us down the road.
I can agree with the last part, but I disagree with the first part. The information's absolutely out there. Like that did Trump's was the 2020 election stolen? No, right? Documentaries galore, videos out there, right? Like news segments about all of that exists, right? Articles.
Wait, is Destiny on 100 milligrams? No, he doesn't even take Adderall, right? He takes Vyvanse, right? I'm on 40 milligrams of Vyvanse. My body is adjusted to, like, I don't really feel like it's a lot more subtle now. I have a little, my body has a tolerance. The first week of taking Vyvanse, I felt zooted, my friends. And it was a little conflicting for me being a drug addict in recovery because I liked it. I was like, wait a second, this is not good. There was a little bit of euphoria, but thankfully that only lasted like 4 or 5 days, and now I don't, I'm not like chasing a euphoria or anything like that, but it was a little conflicting for me for sure.
Digital ink spilled, yet it persists. So I don't I disagree, at least for now. I can be convinced otherwise. But I disagree that simply having some grand trial where the heroes of MAGA are put before a tribunal where they can be, where Fox News can position them as heroes against the resurgent democratic regime, right? I disagree that will necessarily lead to a brand new age of truth for the MAGA cult. No.
Are you against criminal prosecution writ large?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. I can assure you I'm not.
Okay, what if we find like a number of Trump officials criminally liable?
No, Stacks. And the thing that I'm pushing back against right now is simply that the claim that he's saying this will edify the MAGA cult. I don't think that will. I'm not sure anything can actually do that.
I think that if the Mar-a-Lago case would have gone through, I think that would have been very damaging to him, and it would have been much harder to deny everything that happened there. But a lot of people just don't even know the details of it because that court case never happened. I think it would have been good for that to happen.
Okay, sorry, I just have to mute myself in 2 locations, but I do want to jump in. So can we separate out like probability?
I don't know if that's true, you know. I don't know if the Mar-a-Lago case went forward and Trump was found guilty of those, maybe, I don't know. That's more of like a process kind of crime. I guess it kind of reminds me of the first impeachment of Donald Trump, which did hurt him, but not significantly. It didn't mortally wound him. I think if he wasn't impeached the first time, I don't know if he would have lost in 2020. So I think it was very consequential, but it was hard to get people to care about the phone call with Zelensky because there's just a lot of moving parts to that. Like the January 6th impeachment, that's a bit different, but I don't know if he would have been prosecuted. I don't know if he would have been convicted of the documents case in Florida. I don't know if that would have edified like the Trump cult or enough of them to mortally wound him.
Probability versus should, real quick. So probability, if we had to put it on a probabilistic scale of like 0 to 100, what Staxiums and Destiny, what do you think the probabilistic scale is that this, like, even there's even the political will for this?
Oh, probably quite low, I would say, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I would tend to agree.
Okay, so what we're really talking about is like moral should. We're just this is an ideal. Well, ideally, I would fire Trump from a trebuchet into the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, that's what I would do. You're not going to find anybody sweeping for the Trump admin on this side of the aisle. I think what we're talking about is now that we've eliminated that as I am not legally permitted or morally permitted to fire Trump out of a trebuchet into the Atlantic Ocean. Now we can kind of move into like what's politically pragmatic about the situation. And when you appeal to pragmatism, I actually don't think that the Nuremberg style trials would be helpful at all. I think you would be creating a cult of personality. I think you'd be creating a persecution complex, especially without criminal convictions, especially without the mass insurgency thing. You can do the January 6th style committee where you document all of the alleged crimes and probable crimes of the Trump administration, but without convictions and without prohibitions from office, I think this is a waste of political capital. And I think that what's going on, like I said, is that there are 4 sociological variables that are contributing to people being radicalized. And if we don't address those, and if we don't spend political capital on those, we're fucked.
Well, I would say that one, these for the Mar-a-Lago thing, for instance, that would be a trial. Like, I'm sure there are chargeable offenses here that we can literally have a trial and have people locked up for. Number one. And number two, I think I would argue that one of the big things that is a sociological variable playing into the decision making of these people on the right is that there really is no punishment for acting the most unhinged way possible. They're still allowed to hold office. They're allowed to lie with impunity. There's no punishment. Like, going forward, if there's not a reckoning, you would be an idiot as a conservative to not act in the same manner because you've constantly been rewarded for it.
I don't agree with that, actually.
There are political punishments for overstepping, and I assume they're going to get into that angle at some point in this debate. But we can already see the political consequences of Trump's insane second term with the elections that we just had. Was it 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was?
So I think that what's happened, at least this is my view on it, the Trump cult has painted itself into a corner where they've put all of their hopes and energy and political capital into a single man, a very flawed man, someone who at minimum within the next 6 months is going to be probably exposed as either covering for an ephemophilic sex trafficking ring or participated in an ephemophilic sex trafficking ring. Those are like covered for is the best case scenario. Steve Bannon was communicating with Mr.
I think that's what Connor's getting into here. Byron with $5. Would you consider doing a video on your opinion of populism, the pros and cons, and overall, is populism a good thing? I don't know if I'm qualified to do that, but I can recommend you a really great video by, was it Hank Green? Overall, I would just say just like populism is just bad. It's just bad. I need to pin this video that we're watching as well.
Jeffrey Epstein as recently as 2017. Like, I think there might even be some text messages from 2019. And, Steve Bannon was Trump's campaign manager. So the whole point about this is like, he's about to take a huge black eye. In the midterms, the Republicans are probably going to get shellacked. Mm-hmm. And then when he's gone, there's nobody who commands the same level of Trump cult of personality. Mm-hmm. And I think JD Vance has been tapped on the shoulder as the next like MAGA prince. But I think that JD Vance is an infinitely more pragmatic person than Trump ever was.
Mm. Yeah,
I don't disagree with you, but it doesn't change anything I'm saying. Like, if you're JD Vance, or if you're anybody in the next part of the Republican establishment, whatever comes after MAGA, if you see that the last part of the establishment got completely screwed by acting in just a blatantly illegal manner, then you have less incentive to do so. But if you see they got away with so much stuff, then that's all going to be in your playbook. Like, okay, well, what rules can I break or bend?
But I don't think he has the riz.
Vance doesn't, but Trump did. Nobody knew that Trump was even coming. Who's to say there's not going to be somebody like Trump in the future?
I mean, the argument right there is whether or not the dissident right wing or the Christian nationalists are going to produce a Trump-like figure who's charismatic to win in mainstream politics. I mean, that's what Nick Fuentes is hoping on, actually.
Sure, but if somebody produces that figure, they're more likely to, ascend to the throne and operate in an unhinged manner if they feel like there's no punishment for doing so.
I have to say right away, I disagree with Destiny's premise here. He seems to be motivated by a desire to control the outcomes in ways that I don't think are realistic in practice. I think that Destiny, when it comes to MAGA and Trump, struggles a little bit when it comes to the acceptance phase. The idea that you could punish Trump administration figures in a Nuremberg type setting And the idea that this would lead to a diminishment of MAGA, I think, is a miscalculation. If anything, I think there's a stronger chance that you would strengthen MAGA politically by making them a martyr, which, and I'm not suggesting that the next Democratic administration needs to not prosecute. Like, if they find that Kash Patel committed crimes when he was FBI director, if they find that Pam Bondi committed crimes when she was AG, I don't know what kind of shield they have against prosecution. I don't know how the immunity decision from the Supreme Court carries over to cabinet members. Like, I really don't know. But I just don't see this outcome that Steven sees. I just don't see it in the same way. He seems to think that you can punish them out of power, and I just don't know. I don't know if I see that. Do we just let them break the law for the sake of politics? Well, I'm certainly not suggesting that. Just to clarify again, I'm not saying we should avoid criminal prosecutions. You know, for example, after the first Trump term, there were people that were saying that Biden should pardon Trump for the sake of the country. I will say that I understand where that comes from, so I'm not going to be overly critical of that. I know that sounds absurd to a lot of people. I disagree with that kind of thinking, but I understand why it exists. There is an argument you can make. It's not like there would be no downsides to, like, the next Democratic president pardoning Trump, which I know that sounds insane. And again, I'm not suggesting that they do that, but the argument for why you would do something like that, there is some merit there in terms of, like, healing the country a little bit, bringing us closer to a kind of bipartisanship that is these days a relic of generations prior. There is some validity to that. Ford did that for Nixon. Yeah, right. I understand. Yeah. That's we have an example of that. At the end of the day, though, I think that the danger of doing something like that outweighs the benefits. The danger is that you just embolden MAGA to do it again in the future. I think that would be a mistake. But this idea of doing like a Nuremberg type trials and holding people to account, doing televised trials, and, you know, exposing them for all these crimes, it assumes a rational electorate, and I don't know why you would assume that. We do not have a rational electorate. I don't know if we've ever had a rational electorate. Hutch, Biden already tried this approach. No, Biden never pardoned former Trump officials or cabinet members or Trump himself. Hutch, they got away with it the first time, and look where America is now. I understand that, but I don't. I think we've talked about this before, but I think if Merrick Garland on day one of Biden's administration, January 20th, well, I guess whenever he was confirmed, I don't know when that was, sometime in March or February, if the first thing that Garland would have done as Attorney General was announced a criminal investigation into Donald Trump, I think that would have backfired spectacularly. Democrats probably would have gotten, it might have actually been a red wave during those midterms. That you can't just entirely ignore the politics of it all. You can't just ignore the potential political implications for your decisions, which is why I'm sympathetic with Garland waiting a little bit before appointing a special counsel. I just think he waited way too long. I agree that Garland was the wrong choice. I understand why Garland was nominated and appointed, but I think he was the wrong choice in retrospect. He was too concerned with the political considerations. It's not that he was wrong to consider them entirely, but he was wrong. He considered them too much. The FBI knew that Donald Trump was blatantly breaking the law. Within a couple of months, the FBI knew that he was lying about the documents that he had. They knew that he was telling his subordinates to break the law. They knew that he was trying to destroy evidence. They knew that like 3 months into the Biden presidency, I think. I'd have to double check the timeline. Maybe it was like 6 months. But they knew pretty early on they should have done that raid, that FBI raid, right then and there. But they were so concerned with the appearance of political motivation that they held off for, I think, was it over a year before the FBI raid happened? They waited way too long. Is what you're saying that either way we go, Dems will lose? One, we do a Nuremberg trial. We risk that MAGA will get worse. So two, we shouldn't do anything. Doing nothing means that there is no risk for maggots to try it again. So I'm not saying you should do nothing again. It seems like sometimes people have a difficult time. There's like two extreme ends of the extreme ends of the spectrum here. On this extreme end, you actually go out of your way to not punish Trump and the Trump administration for possible crimes that they're doing because of the political consideration and out of a desire to like heal the nation. That's on this extreme end. And then the other extreme end is like Nuremberg 2.0. And you just, the next Democratic administration, they hit the ground running and they just boom, 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 boom. There is a spectrum of choice in between these two extremes. I think you do it, but you know, I don't know about Nuremberg trials, but like hold people accountable for any kind of criminal misconduct. But, you know, you do need to be somewhat considerate. You definitely don't want to take any actions that would make them a martyr or make them sympathetic. But your most brain rot take is that the country isn't just a whole new thing now with a lot of damage. I don't quite understand what you mean by that. Pigos, sounds like you're looking for the balance of like accountability within the existing rails of justice against unprecedented times and actions from MAGA. Well, I don't know about you, but the MAGA movement frightens me in terms of what they could become in the future, in terms of the kind of groundwork that they're laying now could sprout into something truly nightmarish. It's a pretty simple calculation. Whatever you do, you just don't want to make any kind of decision that would potentially strengthen them. And that consideration requires a kind of thoughtfulness. I think you need to be extremely calculated with how you do something like that. And I think there is a way to hold people accountable without making them a martyr. Like, what the fuck is the point of the criminal justice system if it isn't used on the most abhorrent crimes? So just to be clear again, I agree. So does Hutch think letting them go will not strengthen them? Okay, guys, I'm getting a little frustrated here. Come on, what are we doing? I've said it like 3 times that I'm not saying don't do anything. Said it like 3 times. For the love of God, please listen to my words. So I actually think that the way that Garland did it was correct, but he did it the wrong way. There's a couple things that would need to happen to pass my smell test. I'll give you a really straightforward answer to your question because it's a fair question. Whatever happens in terms of if there's a Democratic administration in 2029, whatever happens in terms of criminal prosecutions, if that happens, against previous Trump cabinet members or Trump himself, which I don't know how much you can do that because I feel like we all understand that Trump is probably going to pardon himself and the entire cabinet on his way out the door. And so I don't know what that was going to look like. And if that happens, what do you do, right? But there's a couple things. Just like I just have 2 conditions. Okay. So the first condition is that the president, whoever the Democratic president is, they cannot be a party to it at all. They cannot be seen as being involved in that process or influencing that process at all. The first and foremost, that is the surefire way that you will immediately end up just strengthening MAGA politically. And you're also going to bog down your own administration in scandal and controversy, which will hamper your ability to execute on your agenda. I'm talking about like the hypothetical Democratic president. Similar kind of calculation to like Mamdani. So let the president focus on their agenda, their legislative agenda. Let the president focus on what policies they can unilaterally implement with executive authority. That's all the president should be focused on in that first like couple years, typically when you have majorities to work with in Congress. So that's the first condition. The president cannot be a part of any of it. The second condition is that it needs to be done, whatever happens needs to be done with a special counsel. You can't have the attorney general getting up there and doing all these press conferences talking about like new investigations. That is why the special counsel statute exists. That is the purpose of the special counsel. So whoever the AG is, if they want accountability for the Trump administration, then I assume that they would pick a special counsel who they felt was like a bulldog. Like Jack Smith was a phenomenal choice for the special counsel. That guy moved so fast. So that's what I mean when I say Garland actually made the correct decision in terms of how he pursued that. He just waited too long. That was Garland's biggest mistake. Garland was not wrong to not want to be the figurehead of that investigation. And he chose a fucking bulldog. Like Jack Smith prosecuted people for war crimes in The Hague, you know. And Jack Smith moved so fast. He had announced indictments within, how long was it? 4 or 5 months. Like his team, Jack Smith's team, they got working right away. And so if Garland would have appointed Jack Smith a year before, which is what I think he should have done, he waited literally a year too long, then I think Donald Trump would have faced a trial, would have gone to court, and I'm pretty confident that Jack Smith would have secured convictions. Perthamson with $5. Okay, now we have all the preconditions and maybe even the right guy. What should this person do? Let the law guide their decisions. Just do what Jack Smith did. What did he do? Jack Smith put a team together right away. His team was obviously pretty competent. They had the benefit of criminal referrals from Congress. If you'll recall, that came from the January 6th subcommittee, and he very obviously took that referral seriously and just used their work to support a criminal indictment. Like Jack Smith did everything perfectly, as far as I understand, but he only had a limited amount of time to work with. And Warphammer with $5. Mussolini rose to power precisely because toothless liberal establishment refused to indict him for his crimes. I would rather risk the firm hand. You can be firm. Like what I'm saying is firm, you know. I'm not saying don't be firm. Black pilled Kiwi with 5 New Zealand. You sound like you just want less political consideration, not none. That's pretty weak in the current era. I can hear the West Wing theme playing. No, I think the West Wing, they would have it would have been like West Wing style politics to just pardon Trump, I think. All right, let's get back to it.
Well, I agree, but then, okay, so right now, let's talk about it from a process of function, okay? So we have a process of function where effectively what you're saying is we could still do, if they did mass pardons of the Trump admin, what would you charge Marco Rubio for as the person who was running the Department of State under Trump 2?
I think if they historically, a pardon has been seen as an admission of guilt. It's part of it. So if they are pre-pardoned, then I would just formally just charge them all with insurrection and then say that they're pardoned from it. And then at the very least, that bars all of them from running for any public office again. But
what's your evidence? Because as far as I know, Marco Rubio wasn't involved in the fake elector scheme or January 6, 2021.
So he's a part of it, and he supports the current administration.
Participated in insurrection.
He participates in the current administration, and he's more or less a supporter. He's a cabinet member.
So how?
No. Sorry, no. What is this?
Just to be,
He's memeing, right? This is a meme. I think this is a meme.
just to be clear, how far does that go down? So we
To every single
obviously
elected person in the Republican Party right now. Except for the never
Say that one
Trumpers.
more time.
Every single person in the Republican Party right now, except for like the never Trumpers. So like your Masseys, I guess, maybe your Rand Pauls.
Yeah, that's obviously political suicide, wasting political capital. It's effectively a meme position. It's not even a real position.
Okay,
I thought the meme position was where we pretended that the 2020 election didn't happen, and then we doubled down on every single thing we believe, but then we still managed to win in 2025. I thought that was the meme position, but
Are you saying even like state senators, like not even national positions?
yep.
Yeah, so disbarring half
City
of
council.
the political process is not an option.
Yep.
Wait a minute. So city council, right?
'em.
You would say
If they're Trumples, hell
all
yeah.
of them.
Get them. Get
Well,
them out.
city council people very rarely position themselves in party.
But you know how people run, anyone who runs, he's saying anyone who runs on the R ticket, right?
Yeah, but city
except
council
for
members
people
usually
never
don't
Trumpers.
have R tickets.
I understand that. I'm saying, but the point is he's saying everyone, right? So mayors, right?
Okay.
Whatever.
Anybody that supported
mayors,
Trump, if they weren't
anyone-
actively calling out the Trump admin, if they were ever playing into it or whatever, then they're part of it.
Hold on.
Good luck with
Listen,
that, Stacks.
I'm going to let Prime talk, but
It's genuinely hard to kind of parse through because like he's smiling and everything. It feels very memey to me, right?
I know why I would feel that way. Why the fuck do you feel that way?
What do you mean? Because I think that all of these people have contributed to an authoritarian regime that is the most anti-American regime in U.S. history that has almost brought our country to the edge of destruction.
Okay, but at the same time, we have, when it comes to like the deportations of Andre Hernandez Romero or Kilmar Abrego Garcia, ultimately the courts were still able to reel them in. When it comes to January 6, 2021, and by the way, I'm not defending Trump. I think we should fire him from a trebuchet into the Atlantic Ocean. But when you're talking about this process, Marco Rubio, to my knowledge, did not participate in January 6, 2021. And what he's guilty of is overseeing the decommission of USAID and PEPFAR, which is going to lead to approximately between 3 million and 14 million preventable.
There was a report recently. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was all done on estimations. It was a New Yorker article. I don't know if you guys saw, but they project 400,000 dead kids already from the USAID cuts. We are now witnessing what the historian Richard Rhodes termed public man-made death, which he observed has been perhaps the most overlooked cause of mortality in the last century. Brooke Nichols, the Boston University epidemiologist and mathematical modeler, has maintained a respected tracker of current impact. The model is conservative, assuming, for example, that the State Department will fully sustain the programs that remain. As of November 5th, it estimated that USAID's dismantling has already caused the deaths of 600,000 people, 2/3 of them children. Now, I can't speak to this model. I don't know what went into this model. I don't know anything about the person who came up with the model, but this is just one projection. And they say it's a conservative estimate that USAID already in less than a year, whenever USAID was shuttered, that was like 6 months ago. And just in the last 6 months, they estimate 600,000 dead, 400,000 of those being children, which sounds like it is in line with the other estimates that we saw, that USAID would kill something like 13 million over the next 10 years. So if that was true, then that would be consistent with this estimate here, which is just a number that it's difficult to wrap your head around. We saw how disruptive COVID was, for example. It affected like all of our lives in really profound ways. There were mitigation efforts that were made, people locked down, and if this is true, hundreds of thousands of people are dying because we shuttered USAID. There's a remarkable lack of commentary about that. Like, very few people are talking about USAID cuts and the real world impacts of those cuts, as hundreds of thousands of people are just needlessly dying. Pretty insane. Taito said that with $5, you're saying we should prosecute, but we can't give them ammo or make them martyrs. But that's going to happen anyways, regardless of how you do it. I totally disagree that the way that you pursue justice, like the idea that that doesn't matter, I just reject that. I just outright reject that claim. Of course it matters. Of course it matters. Perthamson, I'm sorry. So he said, I agree with your process statements. I'm sad to see that you can't specify one or two people that should be prosecuted. Well, what are we talking about here? What are we charging them with? Like, how am I supposed to know if Pam Bondi is like breaking the law? I have no idea. But if she did, then I would obviously want some accountability for that. It's on TV. Okay, so just give me the law. What do you mean? I'm not incredulous at the idea that the administration officials are breaking the law. I don't know what fucking statutes they could be breaking. I have no idea. I'll leave that to the special counsel, you know. Lopsided Pixel with 16 months. It sounds like some of you guys are like less concerned about the particular statute that you think that people are breaking, and what you just want to see is you just want to see these people punished just generally for being Trump lackeys or whatever. But that is not how we do things in America, just to be clear. We do have laws on the books. Perthamson with $5. Okay, wow. Do you watch the news? Okay, hang on. You don't. Why are you getting testy? Just tell me what laws you think that they should be prosecuted for now, and I'll tell you if I agree. I also don't know how much of a shield administration members get being a part of the executive branch. My understanding is that they're shielded from a lot of accountability. I'll leave it to the legal minds to hash out what laws are being broken. I'm not qualified, quite frankly, to opine on, oh, well, obviously this is a violation of, federal code, blah, 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 blah. To Wee Lorg with $5, he just wants them to not hold office anymore, 14th Amendment. I think he's obviously memeing when he says every elected Republican, like, prosecute them all for insurrection so they don't hold office again. That's a bit of a meme, right? Bad Company with $5. You can't martyr dog shit policy and ideas. Look at Kirk. TPUSA is done. Well, I don't know about TPUSA, but you can for sure martyr bad people.
That's like a man-made Holocaust through incompetence, but I can't think of I don't know how you would charge him with insurrection for participating in the Trump admin related to being a dickhead. Like that.
He aided and abetted the enemies of the state by being a cabinet member for Trump and doing his bidding.
Wait, but now you're just playing into now this is just the tit for tat bullshit.
Good.
We're effectively like, what is it? Today, the Democrats did a 1-minute video, which I approve of, by the way, saying, hey, military service members, hey, members of the intelligence community, you are sworn to an oath of the Constitution of the United States, and you have to remember your oath, and you should not follow illegal orders. Donald Trump, as Wick mentioned, said, these people are...
Speaking of that,
I mean, you can't keep track of this guy and what he says, and I'll tell you this, though. I'm not backing down. I mean,
Speaking of martyrs, I feel like this guy, his odds of being the 2028 nominee literally skyrocketed in the last week. I don't know if he's the front runner, but I think he would be a strong nominee, you guys. Oh my God, bro. I think like this guy might be potentially the strongest nominee in 2028.
we said something very simple. Members of the military need to follow the law. We wanted to say that we have their backs.
I think Mark Kelly would be a strong nominee, bro.
guilty of sedition, and the punishment of sedition is death. Okay, so all you're doing is you're just playing into, in my opinion, this
Wait, would he be the first bald president? Have we ever had a bald president before? Am I about to get bald representation? He would be the first, right? I can't think of any other bald president. We need one. Eisenhower? Wait, Eisenhower was bald? No. He was balding, but he didn't he didn't shave his head. Pretty sure the Constitution prohibits bald people from being president? That's devastating.
This hysteria that every single political fight is existential.
Well, except it is on that side. They're the ones that are saying that everything is existential while they're being existential. That's part of their existential fight, is by saying that everything is existential.
No, you're making it existential by saying that if you had the power, then you would disbar them from politics and wielding power altogether.
Yeah, but I think I have a good reason for that. They don't have a good reason to say we should execute sitting senators and congressmen.
So,
Okay.
we'll
Prime,
get
go
back
ahead, but
to
I got plenty.
I'm sure he's given us plenty, right? But I got.
This is the tit for tat thing here. I feel like with Destiny, with these kind of takes, I have to read between the lines, and with some of the people in chat, I have to read between the lines and just almost get away from the literal specifics of the conversation altogether. And like what I'm seeing, I'm using my therapy approach. Like what I'm seeing is that people are very angry, and they have every right to be. And what I'm seeing is that people are motivated by a sense of wanting justice, and they have every right to feel that way. And well, I'll affirm that.
One question for each of our friends here. One to Staxium. I just want to pull you in and hear your beautiful voice.
For sure.
How much of this do you agree with? I mean,
well,
so to be clear,
sure.
just let me ask the question, right? Yeah, to be clear,
for sure. Go
what Stephen has said is that everyone.
I am not. Okay, hang on. I just got to make a conscious decision to not get stun locked, and just, there's a lot of good faith people in both of my chats. Okay, I'm just gonna focus on you guys. Okay, you're the only ones that matter to me right now.
who has supported Trump, right? I'm assuming he means everyone in office, but I'm not entirely clear on that either.
I think he said in office.
Okay, well, everyone in office.
Ruth with a tier 2 membership as a DGGer, this stance from Destiny is insane. I think he's taking a deliberately provocative stance to make a point. I don't know if he literally means we should prosecute every elected Republican, which would be tens of thousands of people across the country. How many political positions are there in the country at the combined between local, state, and federal? Tens of thousands, maybe? I don't even know.
Wait, what would that other?
Like
What
anyone
else
who
could it
voted
be?
for him, would we debar people who voted?
Yeah, but if you voted for them, that's also support,
The
right?
200 million people. I assume Steven doesn't think those.
We could just ask him if he's here.
We shouldn't assume.
Yeah, it wouldn't be every single person that voted for him, because they're also for the insurrection thing. You have to be a prior oath taker, so you'd have to have held public office, and we can't access people's votes. So
Yeah, okay. I'm not taking Steven literally. I'm taking him seriously. Okay.
take me literally and seriously. Yeah, I can be taking both. I'm not Trump. I don't need a translator or to speak like a retard. So.
Okay. So Staxium, right?
My implication there being that Trump speaks like a retard. I wasn't attacking anybody on the panel. That was my thing. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No worries.
Yes, that's your question. Agree with
Yeah. So
You guys go.
No, sorry, I was waiting for him to finish his question. Yeah. So the first thing that I'm going to point out is I felt like Connor was attacking.
King Meet us for $5. The Mike Benz guy, that one guy keeps saying, look up his crazy right-winger conspiracy guy that helped take down USAID.
This idea that like just because it was Nuremberg, like we're calling it the Nuremberg trials, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're like making that equivalent to what the Nazis did. Like obviously what this administration doing is not as bad as the Holocaust.
Okay, I need to watch this on Wix channel because I can't handle the video game noises in the background. It's driving me insane.
But since we're talking about all elected Republicans, could you tell me the never Trumpers that have run in Orlando, Florida?
Nope.
No, you can't. Okay, all right. So how do we? So above the top line, right? Above below the federal line, how do we determine these individuals? Because all of them may not have been very public, but maybe they didn't. They had private thoughts. They said something to their friends. Is that enough? I disagreed with Trump to
You
my
would
friends.
consult the record. They're public officials, so they should have public statements. That would be pretty exceptional for them to have no public statements as public officials.
Yeah, but Thomas Massie voted with the Republicans 91% of the time. Like he's still in lockstep as far as Trump's agenda goes when it comes to securing the border, when it comes to the big, beautiful bill, when it comes to this, when it comes to that. I mean, he might have fought it at some point, but once again, 91% voting record that aligns with Trump over the past decade.
To that point,
Okay, you can get
sorry,
rid of
just
them
to
too, then,
throw,
if you want. Sure.
just
Yeah.
to throw something. What about Fetterman as well? Would he be liable for this?
Fuck
Yeah,
that
because
guy.
he's like normalized. Like
I mean, I definitely think fuck that guy, but like, I don't know if he's liable for
this
the
psycho shit. This is my party should rule indefinitely without challenge, and I think it's crazy. I think there's no rooting in
This is
reality.
why I'm trying to get. That's why I'm asking about details here, right? To like really nail down what the hell we're talking about. Okay, so you're saying they have to have made public statements. Okay, if they were elected within, was it 2027 is the last year of his reign, right? So if they're elected in 2027, a Republican, right? Do they count? Right? Are they up for these trials as well?
If they ran under a Trump ticket, sure. If they were like supportive of Trump, yeah.
Yeah, but hold on. That's not exactly honest because Fetterman has been also very against Trump. Like he's made a lot of public statements like rejecting Trump, but you also said that Fetterman should go too. So it's I'm curious.
I made a lot of statements. I don't know. I guess you could find some particular issue. Whatever the particular thing is, if you want to concede the argument that you agree that we should do this, and now you just want to argue over the specifics of like who should be included, that's fine. For 90% of elected people, it's going to be plainly obvious. How you would determine
agree with you.
the edges, we could leave it up to a
that
court
we
to
should do
decide.
this.
We could leave it up to a court to decide, or we could leave it up to a commission to decide, or whatever. But like, I mean, I'm not going to say like, oh, actually, I'm going to change my mind on this entire idea because there's going to be some edge cases that are difficult to decide.
No, that's fair.
I concede that
No, it's not
55%
fair.
of the Republican Party should be barred from voting indefinitely. I don't concede that. I think that's
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not saying. Well, who said voting? I just said holding office again.
Okay, but okay, 55% of the Republican Party voted in order to elect Trump as a first choice during the primary. Let's just say that correlates up to the Republican Party, where 55% of the representatives support Trump wholeheartedly as a first choice. I think that separating those people from politics is fucking insane.
Yeah, so I think it matters here, right? So that, like, if let's pretend I'm a Republican, right? Let's pretend I'm in office, right? If you're saying there's a way out here, well, I care about that way out. Oh, I'm a never Trumper too. I mean, I was always a never Trumper. Didn't you hear me say, right? Like, maybe on some website somewhere, I said something critical about Trump. Doesn't that count?
These are public officials. They make public statements. They have public offices. They put out public press releases. These are not random individual private citizens. Definition.
This is already so absurd that we could just go ahead and concede like a hypothetical in which we were able to perfectly discern every single never Trumper versus every single Republican. It's still a stupid fucking idea. It's still a wild idea.
We'll do that. Let's do that.
I have a question. When you, and this is for Destiny, if this is the public position that you're advocating for, what incentive does any Republican or anyone who's ever held office under Trump have to ever denounce Trump? Does this not just make them more incentivized to always support Trump? Because if they don't and Trump loses and the Democrats win, then they know that they're never.
I mean, that's a good point, actually.
We're going to have power again. So why would they ever?
Yeah, he's become the boogeyman that the Republicans pretend he is.
Yeah, no, that this whole thing of like become the boogeyman is like raping someone over and over again, saying this person is physically abusive, this person is, and then the 12th time you them, they punch you and they go, look at that, you've become the violent person I said you always were. I'm sorry, that's fucking retarded. Also, I don't know why you're speaking hypothetically, Wick. Do people have to support Donald Trump? Otherwise, if they don't, they feel like they're going to be held criminally liable for things. That's literally the entire story of the entire Republican Trump administration.
What do you guys think is more likely to produce the outcome of MAGA, the movement, being defanged in this country? That was a bit convoluted. Okay, hold on. I'm going to give you guys two options, and you guys tell me which one you think is more likely to mortally wound MAGA as a political movement. You do the Destiny Nuremberg trials, and I guess according to many people in YouTube chat, the president directly involves themselves into the process. Like the president is spearheading this Nuremberg 2.0 situation. And then you have trials, criminal prosecutions, et cetera, which those wouldn't even be televised because the federal courts, they don't allow cameras in the courtroom, but I suppose maybe the Congress could change that rule. I don't really know. Okay, so you have that option, or why don't we just like play the tape out a little bit here? I think the path that MAGA is currently on is leading south. I think MAGA right now are already on a really bad trajectory. They are headed for a shellacking in 2026. And if Donald Trump continues to, number one, physically diminish, and number two, just act increasingly unhinged, we could be headed towards, now I'm not going to give everybody's hopes up here, but we could be headed towards like a 2008 style blowout in 2028. If the current trajectory holds, I wouldn't put money that the current trajectory, I'm not telling you the current trajectory is going to hold. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 3 years? Nobody could predict this kind of thing. But they're already suffering kind of like a slow political death right now. We're all witnessing it. It's happening right before our eyes. What do you do once you get power? That's the question you're avoiding. I think the next president should focus on meeting the needs of the voters. That's what the next president should do. The next president should seek to springboard. If we play the tape out and if the current trajectory holds, and then the Democratic president has big enough majorities to actually do some really bold stuff, they should focus 100% of their time on that. Leverage that moment to get a public option, codify the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, codify abortion protections, do something really bold with renewable energy infrastructure projects. Like, take the time and use your power and capital as president. Sure, abolish ICE, you know, fold it into DHS. Just get rid of ICE. I'm on board with that at this point. We already have DHS. They can execute those functions. You don't need ICE. I don't know what the political appetite for getting rid of ICE is. I don't know how that polls, but I mean, you would have so much capital at that point that you could actually spend it to do. I think those things are going to be way more beneficial for the American voter than the president spearheading Nuremberg 2.0. Noxus with $5. MAGA has not faced any real accountability, so we have never had a good example. They've gotten away with January 6th and so many other things scot-free. To be clear, there were criminal convictions in the Georgia case because there were people that pled guilty. And are there still ongoing criminal cases so there was some accountability for that stuff. But I don't know what are the options of holding Trump accountable for January 6th at this point. I don't know if there's any options there.
How many people in pardon that have committed crimes either directly on his behalf or on behalf of his administration or does other crimes and then ended up supporting him? Like, the Republicans already have this thought process and it needs to be exterminated. The thought process, not the people.
Wait, hold on. This is such, okay. The reason why this is such bullshit is because I feel like you just either don't understand or don't want to understand the MAGA narrative and why it's appealing to Americans. The whole narrative is that since World War II, we have had a runaway federal government that has grown and grown and grown and grown outside of the Constitution. The Republicans have been playing footsie with the Democrats forever. And as a result, we now have a wrecking ball. So regardless of whether or not you think Trump is a good person or a bad person, things like cutting PEPFAR and USAID, that's good on a principled stance because billions of dollars shouldn't be going overseas to help people who aren't American. Slashing the DOE, deconstructing the Department of Education. Well, the federal government, realistically, we're 50, relatively speaking, sovereign states who should be deciding our own local affairs. Well, that's a good thing because the DOE, since it's gutted, it's now giving local control to education. You can say that those stories are bullshit. You can say it's nepotism. You can say it's cronyism. You can say all the corrupt things, and I'm probably going to agree with you 7 out of 10 times. But that doesn't mean that people with Americans, especially with the First Amendment, with freedom of speech and freedom of conscience, that doesn't mean that that opinion or behavior should be made illegal. That's fucking insane. That's insane. You yourself are advocating for a position that's contradictory to the Republic of the United States. It makes no fucking sense.
Literally not. We literally have an amendment that literally bars people from committing insurrection and holding public office again. So I think my opinion.
Okay, how has Marco Rubio committed insurrection?
By supporting an insurrectionist.
That's not insurrection.
It definitionally is. Read the text of the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Aiding and abetting is part of an insurrection. Yeah, there's no difference between committing insurrection and aiding insurrection.
By actively participating in the insurrection. Trump hasn't been convicted of insurrection.
You don't have to be convicted for the amendment, but we can convict him by just charging him with the crime.
If
you charge him with the crime, he's already pled and he's already been.
One at a time, please. Let Destiny, hold on. Let Destiny finish his point, and then you can respond. Go
ahead. He's pardoned, if he's pre-pardoned, then he's guilty. Then you just say, charge him with it, have him be pardoned, nothing happens, then you bar him from running for office again.
Oh, okay. So Hunter, right now, because you're being consistent, you're just going to go ahead and accept the fact that Hunter is guilty of FARA violations, tax violations, money laundering, and corruption on behalf of the Biden family, right?
Sure. Hunter Biden can never run for public office again. I'll be consistent on that.
Okay, that wasn't even the question. But the whole point is that I know that's bullshit because we've thought about this in the past. All you're doing is you're making a concession because the concession doesn't matter anymore. So what's actually going on here is you're saying that we should bar probably 1/6 of the country from participating in politics once again.
And I keep saying, I said elected officials. No, wait, you keep saying 1/6. I'm saying elected officials right now.
Saying that elected officials should never have participated within like the cult of Trump or MAGA politics.
True. Yeah. 100%.
It's a little broad. It's a little broad, but I do think he's memeing a bit here. Teague Starbuck with $5. If your only options were prosecution of MAGA's leaders with the president leading the charge or nothing, which would you choose? That's a good question. Probably nothing, because I think that would stop the president from doing. The president wouldn't get. I think it would be much more difficult for the president to get anything done. To put the question in a different way, let me ask you guys, what do you think is more important for the, let's say a Democrat wins in 2028, they're inaugurated January 20th, 2029. What do you think is more important to get done? their policy agenda or Nuremberg 2.0? Let's say the president has big enough majorities to get a public option done. Would you rather have a public option or would you rather have Nuremberg 2.0? They can and should do both. Okay. Can I get you to concede that the president leading the charge on Nuremberg 2.0 could potentially massively stifle any legislative efforts? Could I get you to acknowledge that that is possible? Okay. That's where I'm coming from. So it's not necessarily a binary, but that's just what my thinking is. Maybe it's possible. I will concede in the infinite multiverse. Maybe it's possible for a hypothetical Democratic president to lead Nuremberg 2.0 and get a public option. I am inclined to think the former would very much complicate the latter. And for me, it's more important to get a public option than Nuremberg 2.0, in my humble opinion. I think that would be much better for the American people than Nuremberg 2.0. How do you feel about it when the president doesn't spearhead it, but appoints a special counsel? That was my position the whole time. If there is some kind of massive effort to criminally prosecute the Trump administration, which again, I'm not sure how feasible this is. Pretty sure Donald Trump is going to pardon himself and his entire cabinet on his way out the door. So I don't even know what we're talking about. Like, I don't know how that complicates things. Then you don't think MAGA is that bad. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you and I have totally different opinions about what is the best way to quote unquote, like defeat MAGA. Right now, my position is that they seem to be doing a really good job defeating themselves right now. There is a price to pay for Trump. There has been a price to pay for Trump. And I know for some people, they're not going to be able to compute that because he won re-election in 2024. And for some people, that's kind of the end of the analysis. And that you just assume just like total victory moving forward. But that's just not the way that politics work. Number one, 2024 should have on paper been a blowout for the Democratic Party, just an absolute blowout. It should have been a bloodbath, and it was not. I think that's because of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has proven himself to be quite the albatross for the Republican Party. Like, he is dragging that part. He is holding them back. The Republican Party would be stronger if they had competent leadership. The Democratic Party would be struggling a lot more if the Republicans actually had a competent leader. Donald Trump has been a drag on the party. You say that, but we still have 3 more years. That's the consequence of 2024. I accept that Donald Trump is going to be here for the next 3 years. I just don't. I accept that. I do read YouTube
Even
chat.
if nobody goes to prison, I think it's still important to get an official and public accounting of the full breadth of the corruption that took place in that administration. Without truth and reconciliation, Trump 3.0 will be even more likely to come about, and under a different name.
Can I just push back on this a little bit, guys? We did have a detailed, comprehensive accounting for what Trump did on January 6th. The government did that. We had a select subcommittee that investigated that event for like several months. There were televised hearings that stretched out for a couple of months. And do you know what, guys? It didn't really move the needle significantly. So where is your confidence coming from that a Democratic president-led investigation would yield the kind of results that you guys seem to think it would? I don't understand where that confidence comes from. Of course, the president has a bigger platform, sure. But I think the reality of the situation is there's a significant percentage of the country that are relatively disengaged from politics. I think we looked up some statistics a month or two ago. We tried to sort of gauge. And I think where we landed on was it's like 70 to 80% of the country that are pretty disconnected from politics. If you could devise a society where everybody was super engaged, then I don't think Donald Trump his political movement would have succeeded in the first place. But we don't live in that world. We don't live in that country. Hasn't that always been the case for America? I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe, but I don't know. I feel like previous generations, I could be wrong. I'm just making kind of a guess here, but you know, during the Cold War, for example, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, you know, in the context of the Cold War or some of the World War II, I'll bet you know, I would just assume that a way higher percentage of the country were paying attention to politics in that kind of way. But the problem is that there's a lot of people that see politics on their social media feeds, but they're not really meaningfully engaging with politics. You know, they're not really like going out of their way to watch long form content, dry discussions about domestic policy and foreign policy and the political dynamic. And I would assume that a lot less people are doing that than they did in generations previous. The January 6th committee still revealed egregious shit we never would have known about. Do it anyways, even if nobody goes to prison. I don't know why there's so much reluctance. What is to stop the Congress from doing that again? The Congress can do that. You guys understand that, right? Like, I assume the next Democratic-led Congress will, in fact, do that. If the Democrats take back the House, I guarantee you they are going to establish subcommittees to investigate the current administration. They are going to haul cabinet members up in front of live cameras in subcommittee hearings, and they're going to grill the shit out of them. So I think you guys are going to get a taste of what you're looking for, just a little taste, in about a year, a little over a year, when the next Congress is sworn in and Democrats are probably in the majority. And to be clear, you do not want them to do that, Hutch. Can you guys take a fucking breath? When did I ever suggest or hint that I don't think that the Democrats in Congress should hold hearings and grill the... Take a fucking breath, man. You are arguing with somebody else. Bro, it was a question. It was a leading question. It was an assumption. Like, what have I said that indicated that I would be opposed to Democrats grilling the administration? Noxus with $10. We had accounting for January 6th with no accountability. Sure, it is great that some things were found and proven, but to what end? Committing treason without consequences is a horrible precedent that we set. I agree, and I think it's Garland's fault.
This feels just a little bit sorry,
absurd.
and I think this is a little bit different from the place that we started at, because you were saying Nuremberg trials, but these don't sound like trials. Like, these do sound like if you're part of the admin, you're guilty. But I don't know if that's a trial.
Well,
what
if they're
the
going to
trial
pre-pardon,
occurs?
if they're pre-pardoning, then we can't have a trial. Now, if they don't pre-pardon,
Sure.
then we can try them all for insurrection. Fuck it.
Sure. Okay. So what? Let's go.
Okay,
just
yeah, actually, let's say that they
hypothetical.
will pre-pardon him. What's your evidence that they're engaged in insurrection?
I don't know. We'd have to figure out what the historical definition of insurrection is, and then I guess we would dig up all the evidence. We'd do our discovery like a normal trial, and you'd find everything, and you'd go through all their emails, you go through all the phone calls, you see if they were knowingly violating the law.
This case would fall flat on its fucking face.
Would it be politically popular? I'm not denying that, of course. It would be politically unpopular, yeah.
Okay,
sure.
so so what you're saying is you're making a moral statement that, okay, 1/6 of political representatives, or actually it would be a quarter because these are elected people, 1/4 of elected representatives should be prohibited from participating in politics.
Yep.
Okay. What if we do these trials? What if there's no pre-pardoning? Marco Rubio gets put on trial and he's found innocent. Like, I don't know if I understand even your hypothetical.
He beats his trial, but at least all the evidence would be out there. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So then I don't know.
So-
Sure, yeah, I agree with that.
Here's the question for the opposite
But
side.
I don't agree with
Let's say
this.
that- Wait. Okay, question for the other side. Let's say that there are no trials. Let's say that another Trump comes along. Why wouldn't you support him doing the exact same things he's done now, but worse?
Why? Hold on. Sorry. Why
wouldn't you support the next Trump doing the
him
same?
Doing the next.
No,
Sorry,
not
go
you. I'm
ahead.
not asking
Yeah,
you.
read it.
Elected politician comes about. There's the Trump 3 or whatever. The next Trump comes about. Why wouldn't you support him doing the exact same things that this Trump is doing, but even worse?
Not you. It's
You in the general sense, you being MAGA or anyone else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if I were MAGA, what is the disincentive from supporting Trump
Right.
3 if Trump 3 was legally possible?
Aren't we incentivizing people to take advantage of the law here?
Ooh.
Without political consequences.
I probably wrapped my head around the fact that I think that Trump's going down because he's an ephebophilic sex cultist. I would have to say that we would need to reinforce, actually, I think the political capital after Trump should be spent on reinforcing the guardrails around authorization of uses around military force. It should be put to reinforcing the guardrails around executive orders. It should be put to trying to get Congress to be more of like that Congresswoman said who just got installed, that it needs to be a co-equal branch of government. So I would actually
so just checking. So your check against the people. Your check against the people who would support Trump, the next Trump. The people who are openly okay with breaking the law would be to make more laws?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I don't think that would be effective. I think that would be, that's entirely self-defeating.
In reference to breaking the law.
I need to start keeping I need to open up like a notepad document and just start keeping track of all the ways that the guardrails have checked Trump during his second term, because it has been numerous. We did this after Nixon. We did this after Nixon. After Nixon was, after he resigned and was pardoned, I think the legislative branch passed laws regarding sort of like strengthening guardrails. I know the DOJ implemented or established and implemented new norms to reinforce or establish the DOJ as or the independent nature of DOJ. That was a very rational response. Now, Donald Trump came along and kind of trampled a lot of those norms, but are we suggesting that this is a bad idea? Like the Congress should probably write and pass some new laws clarifying some things? Like why would you dismiss that? There's no use for anything like that? Are we just going to assume that every Republican president moving forward is going to be another iteration of Donald Trump who's just going to trample these norms? Like, I don't do both, Hutch? Hold people accountable and like strengthen the guardrails? I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Pardoning Nixon was a mistake. I mean, I'm inclined to agree. Yeah.
Law, we would have to get into the nitty-gritty of it, because as an example, you've said that Trump people have suffered no consequences. That's not true. All the January 6th insurrectionists were incarcerated. There were 1,500 people who had criminal charges.
And then they were pardoned.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with whether or not they suffered consequences. They still suffered consequences. If you want to put limits on the power of the pardon, then I'm all ears for a technocratic solution.
So
I guess my question is, if you're a Republican congressperson right now, why the fuck would you ever support guardrails against the pardoning power when, like, you could just be a George Santos? You know what I'm saying? Like, you could just be breaking the law and then Trump gets to pardon you. Why would you ever try to limit that authority?
Where does the pardon power come from? Is it in the Constitution? Can the Congress pass laws to limit the president's pardon power? The president's pardon power comes directly from Article 2, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution. Because this power is explicitly granted in the Constitution, the Congress cannot change it through ordinary legislation. Congress has a few indirect tools. They can do oversight and transparency. They can investigate circumstances surrounding a pardon. They can require reporting or record keeping. Okay, no, they're very limited. You'd have to amend the Constitution.
Well, I mean, if you had principles, it's because you wouldn't want to see the republic die.
Yeah, the pardon power is that, I don't know what the founders were thinking with that. That is insane. They very, very much fucked up with that. Like, I really have no idea where that came from. Why did they think that was a good idea?
Okay, great. That's okay. That's a benchmark the Republicans have not been able to clear.
Actually, I would say that Thomas Massey and MTG have actually
you've got maybe 5 you can point to. I agree with Massey. Okay, even though he's a fucking psycho, he's for sure a never Trumper. MTG has, like, the last 2 weeks out of her, I don't know how long she's been in power, 6 years. That seems too high. I don't know. MTG over the last 2 weeks has changed her tone. Okay, great.
Let's be clear real quick, because I don't want people to think I agree with that statement. MTG has not changed her tone. She's just following the political winds. Either she's become a never-Trumper. If she is, it's not because she's offended by the authoritarian moves that Trump has made. It's just because she sees the politics going in a different direction.
She's not part of the game anymore, so she's scorned. Sure, but you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons, and I don't really give a shit. Now we've moved the argument from Well,
Yeah, but all you pointed to was 4 people
of people from voting to
Let Connor finish.
we don't have idealistic candidates that could actually reinforce the guardrails of the republic. These are like totally separate arguments.
Well, to be clear, I didn't make that second argument. I don't know where that second weird argument comes from. Maybe Saxion does, but I didn't make that argument.
Okay. Well, I think that like spending political capital on reinforcing our republic would be infinitely better spent than trying to wipe out 25% of elected representatives.
Look, I have a question.
Funnily enough, I find these equally feasible.
Yeah,
like the fact that Republicans would play ball to put back up guardrails that they have disassembled over the last 10 years. It seems equally viable than Steven's
What's not going to help in that effort? What's not going to help in that effort is saying, "Oh yeah, if we ever do get power, we're coming for that ass. We're going to make sure."
Sorry, what's not going to help in that effort?
You're not even
You mean like what Trump has been saying over and over and over again?
How is that working out for them, you guys? I don't. The tit for tat argument for me just falls flat on its face because I look at the consequences of the Trump presidency. That is not something that I want to see coming from the Democratic Party because it is not working out for the Republican Party right now. It's working out for them like, really? Like Donald Trump won. He's going to be president for the next 4 years. They got their tax cuts. They got the one big beautiful bill. They got that stuff. What are the next 3 years going to look like? It's not pretty. So far, it's not been pretty. There is an end date to Donald Trump's presidency. The reason they're losing is because of the economy and Epstein and ICE. These are all decisions that Trump made. Like Trump made the decision to implement a blanket tariff policy, which has caused inflationary pressure on prices, and to reverse the trend that we were on from the last year and a half, 2 years of Biden's presidency, like landing that plane, the soft landing. Donald Trump's administration chose to weaponize ICE in the way that they've done that. And what was the third? And Donald Trump's president and his administration, they have chosen to make the Epstein issue way more salient than it needed to be. These are all self-inflicted wounds. I don't disagree that these are the reasons that are driving Trump's approval ratings, but I think there's probably very good argument that Donald Trump doing massive overreach is also damaging him politically. But there's nothing about this presidency that I want to emulate. This is delusional, Hutch. Okay, well, let's just imagine that this was a Democrat. How would you guys evaluate the Democrat if they were in office right now? Let's say Kamala Harris won, and Kamala Harris got one reconciliation bill done in like June of her first year, and she was just going banana buck wild with her administration, weaponizing DOJ, personally inserting herself and asserting herself as the figurehead of the criminal investigatory effort against, Trump. Let's say she got blown the fuck out in elections a few weeks ago. Let's say she had no real legislative prospects, like there was really nothing else on the agenda legislatively. Let's say the Democratic Party was headed towards a bloodbath in 2026. Would we look at that Democratic administration and evaluate them as being in a good place? I think not. But the fact that it's Trump, I think, I don't know anybody who can make the argument right now that Trump and Trumpism and MAGA are in a healthy political condition right now. They are dying right now. Literally dying right now. These are the death rattles of MAGA. We're all witnessing it right now. So like Biden's midterms, I don't know what you remember from Biden's midterms. What are you talking about? That was not a bloodbath. What are you talking about? That was a historically good midterm performance for an incumbent party. You'd have to go back to like George W. Bush in 2002 after September 11th and JFK, the Democratic Party midterms after the Cuban Missile Crisis, where they did like pretty well by historical standards. Why do you see holding a MAGA accountable as becoming some kind of crazy action? The crazy thing is to do. All right, guys, I need to put a piece of text on the screen just to clarify my position once again. I don't know, who said don't hold MAGA accountable? Who said that? Trump's personal success in terms of what he promised when he was running, his goals that he had in mind, I'm sure they're reasonably in line with what he wanted to see happen. The question is, how is that landing for the country? How is the country responding to him being successful on his agenda? He did send ICE into neighborhoods to terrorize people. He did do like increased levels of deportations for people with no criminal records. He did do the tariffs. He did do the one big beautiful bill. Great. Okay. How's the country responding to that? They are not responding well at all. They are not happy with this administration. Being voted out is not a consequence. People still support this crazy shit and want to see him go harder. Being voted out is obviously a political consequence. That's a pretty significant political consequence. His base all loves him for everything except for the tariffs. Who cares? That's his base. Of course they love him. How do you think you're going to change his base? I don't know if that should be a goal. I don't know if you can fix those people. The goal should just be to win more elections, right?
Able to win the election doing it. He's an elected piece of shit. Nobody won the election.
This is whataboutism.
We're not arguing about. No, it's not whataboutism. It's this happened. Okay, you're saying that you'll never win an election doing this. Didn't Trump win 2 elections? If you ask him 3 elections doing this, wasn't his chance in the first election lock her up?
Ran a senile 90-year-old person with his brain leaking out of his fucking ears who couldn't do a debate.
That ran against him in 2016 when he was saying lock her up, we're coming for lock her up.
Wait. What's the point that you're trying to make? If you're trying to make the point
you're
that
telling me that if you're acting,
yes.
You're saying that if you act vindictive and evil, no one's going to want to vote for you. Trump ran on vindictiveness.
How do you explain the moderate win?
This is such an incomplete analysis of the impact of Trump's rhetoric. We're isolating 2016 and 2020. I mean, 2016 was a much more decisive victory in the House. What did he have? Like Vishy, what was the House majority in 2017? He had like a 35 or 40 seat majority or something. He had like a 3-seat majority in the Senate. And then what happened? Years of losing. They did not do well in the immediate years, in the special elections, and then in the midterms they got blown out. 2020, he became the first one-term president since George H.W. Bush lost in 92. They did pick up a few seats in the House in 2020. That wasn't ideal, but we won how many seats in the Senate and won control of the Senate? Greatly limited losses in the midterm elections. I need Laksha. I need him on speed dial to talk about how Donald Trump has hurt the Republican Party electorally. 2022 is really the best example, I think, of this. It's the year that the Democrats, I think, really kicked off the Pied Piper strategy. The Democrats were putting money into Republican primaries to elevate the crazier candidates. And a lot of people criticized the Democrats for doing that at the time because they said it was too risky. But boy, did that play out well. It worked. It actually worked. Because of that strategy and because Donald Trump kept elevating the craziest candidates over the more politically sound candidates, like the Republicans lost so many winnable races in 2022. That was Donald Trump's fault. I think it's so narrow to evaluate the strength of Trump just based on 2016, him winning in 2016 and 2024. There's so many other races that happen in this country that are so consequential. Why would we limit it to just his individual races that he won in 2016 and 2024? You could very easily make a strong argument that the Republicans would have been way more successful electorally in the last 10 years of Trump if Trump wasn't the guy, if he had never entered the race to begin with.
Winning in 2020 if everybody is like, so hungry for vindictiveness?
COVID probably had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, COVID probably did have a lot to do with it.
Wait, hold on.
I'm not done yet. Thank you. You know what had a lot to do with 2024, Trump's win?
Your mom?
Democratic incompetence. Democrats seem uniquely capable of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Why the fuck are we talking about the general when we should be talking about the primary? Trump won the Republican majority.
Okay, Trump won. He did. Okay, in the initial primary, 16-1. Okay, like the original primary. In the original,
No, I was saying in 2020,
he won a plurality because all the moderates wouldn't fucking drop out.
No, Trump was the most popular candidate to emerge from the primary.
No, he said by plurality, but is that even true? I thought Trump had a fucking majority. I thought he won an outright majority in 2016. Did he not? Did Trump win a majority or a plurality of Republican primary votes in 2016? I thought it was a outright majority, like a bare majority. I thought he like dominated, didn't he? Oh no, it was a plurality. Oh, it was close to a majority. In 2016, he won 44.9% of primary votes. But if the moderates had all dropped out, Trump would have won that regardless, because he had such a commanding lead. Some of those voters would have gone to Trump, and yeah.
End of the cycle. But I guarantee you that there was like probably 80% of the way through, 90% of the way through, he was still sitting at 30.
ASOS, Trump received about 45% of total Republican primary vote nationwide, the largest raw vote total in GOP primary history. Jesus.
7 or 39%. And
there's no guarantee that if Cruz or Rubio drop out.
Fast forward to the part where Wick has random people join the panel. Kafka explains how this could be done legally and constitutionally. They're kind of getting to the meat and potatoes of the conversation here. I'm going to try not to get stun locked and listen to this for a little bit.
Republicans did to Donald Trump what the Democrats did to Bernie Sanders, we wouldn't have this problem. But at the same time, they didn't, and we can't cry.
Hold on.
Now, I think Trump was way more popular with Republican voters than Bernie was with Democratic voters.
Hold on. You're making your argument for us because all you're pointing to is that you don't actually need broad political support in order to push a candidate through.
Well, I have no idea what that has to do with anything I've said.
You owned him. Mogged.
I'm not being sarcastic. I feel like
I don't. So,
I want to give it. Hold on. I have a question that I want to give it to Prime. My question though is if Staxiums and Destiny, you both acknowledge that this would be politically unviable, like there would be no political will for this. This would be very unpopular. It just wouldn't be an electoral winner. Why would you think that advocating for this publicly would make it more likely that you are going to win in the future if you've already acknowledged that this is politically?
Did Destiny explode yet? Not yet. I don't know when that happens, but
Cancerous of a position. Why the hell would you ever take this position publicly?
Because you got to fight for the things that you believe in to move the public in that direction, like our fucking God Emperor Gavin Newsom did with Prop 50. What a king.
Hell fucking yeah.
See,
what drove Prop 50 was Texas.
Seriously, but not literally.
And Republicans. But anyway, go ahead.
What was a response to Republican?
Yes, it was. Yes, exactly. It was a response to Republican overreach, right? And so when
Republican lawlessness,
when the Republicans point to things saying, "Oh, Democrats, public Democratic influencers want to bar all of their opposing all Republicans from office," right? They're going to use that to justify people doing some pretty crazy shit on their side. And
like what? Like the president of the United States coming out and saying some congressman should be executed? Like that kind of crazy shit?
Do you think it's gonna? Do you think it could? Do you think it can't get worse?
Yeah, but I don't know how often. But I mean, like, hold on, it can.
That's a great question.
Always get worse. That's the reason why you take dramatic corrective action right now.
Okay, right now, if we're not able to impeach Donald Trump based off of what he's saying right now, what makes you think like, okay, so you made the point that you're arguing to move people more in your direction. Okay. What I'm saying is not only are you wasting your political capital now, and you're probably making discourse worse now, but the jumping over the bar would be trying to impeach Donald Trump now, and we're nowhere fucking near that.
You know what I think gets lost in these discussions, and it's come up in the past? The framing gets to be that, so like when Wick just asked a moment ago, do you not think that it can get worse? I think that the framing is a big problem in these conversations. As we talk about like political considerations, is this politically viable? We have hypothetical discussions about you could make a martyr out of Trump. And Destiny seems to always come back with, well, like, look at where Trump is already. He's like, calling for people to be executed and da, 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 da. American politics are, when we're talking about a national race like, or in particular like national races, they are a fight for the political center. So when people say, well, Trump's base already love him and he's doing all this crazy shit and they still love him for that. And they'll use that line as a way to dismiss the idea that there's like Trump is paying politically and the Republican Party are paying politically for hitching their wagon to Trump. The reason why they're paying for it is because American politics are a fight for the center. It doesn't really matter in terms of the discussion. It doesn't really have a lot of relevance that Trump's base love him for the stuff that he's doing. You say, well, Donald Trump is losing. Like, look what he's doing. He's sending ICE into neighborhoods and he's breaking the law and he's doing tariffs and he's doing all this crazy shit. And he's so corrupt and his base still loves him for it. Great. Who cares? I don't understand why that matters. The Republican base is not, or Trump's base more specifically, are not numerous enough to survive the political consequences of what Trump is doing.
We're not even close. So I don't even know what
we can't impeach him now, but my strategy would have all those current Republicans that are unwilling to impeach him, they wouldn't even be in office in the future. So
go ahead, Prime Kite.
Okay.
I knew you wanted.
I keep trying to wrap around my head around this fact that effectively you're not trying to eliminate the voter base, if I heard you correct. You're not necessarily trying to eliminate the Republican Party. You're trying to, through effectively, in my opinion, trumping up charges of insurrection for anybody supportive of the Trump administration. You're trying to disallow 25% of the representatives of the United States from office.
based.
So, okay. One, what about first-term Trump supporters? Right, it's 2016.
They changed their mind. Oh, then they're good now. They changed their mind between Trump. And
okay. So now we've changed their minds. Okay, great. I'm glad we have that. I guess
what if they change their mind in
2027? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
It's too late. Okay.
When's the cutoff date? Right? Was it? And I'm honestly asking this.
Cutoff date?
Hey,
cutoff date was January 20th when Biden came into office.
When Biden came into office. Okay.
It was January 7th, 2021 or 2021.
Okay, right. So I guess.
Hutch, I'd really like you to clarify, are you okay with the presidential candidate proposing the special prosecutor plan during the 2028 campaign trail? No, I don't think that the next Democratic president, first of all, forget about the ethics. I don't think that's politically smart. I don't think that is, actually, it really depends on how the next 3 years play out. So to answer your question, I'll withhold judgment, because it's possible that Donald Trump, really, not that he hasn't already lost his mind, but it's possible that it blows up 1,000 times worse than it is right now. And at that point, we're in completely new territory, and I might have a different answer. And so I'm going to give you a cop-out answer and say that it really just depends.
You have to look at your hands and see the blood on them.
So I have... Okay, I have a problem with what Destiny is proposing, right? And I'm guessing there's a lot of room for agreement for whatever Staxium is proposing.
Yeah, look.
So, hold on, 1 second. No worries. So my issue with what Steven is saying is that there's no exit ramp, right? This sounds to me like purging the Ba'athist Party, right? And there won't be any repercussions from that, right? We'll just get rid of them. But these people don't go away, right? And in fact,
this is all obviously just an intellectual exercise because none of this is rooted in any kind of realistic framework. This is all just theory. We're having a conversation. Should there be Nuremberg 2.0? I don't even know if we have the mechanism to enforce something like that. Is there a legal framework for Nuremberg 2.0 for the Trump administration? Probably not. Not in the way that they're talking about here. It's all just about theoretically, would it be better to do Nuremberg 2.0? But the whole conversation is just about, would it be better to do that? Were that an actual feasible option? But it's not going to happen. So it's all just theory, right?
Them and their supporters are well armed. One second. So what we're saying is that we're going to take a maximalist position, not just against the ringleaders, which I can agree with. Like, I believe that I imagine that Stackson's position, right? Hey, let's have an accountability for the people who are in charge, right? But everyone down the rung, right, in terms of elected office, right? But yes, you aren't talking about arresting Republican voters, true, right? But Republican voters are going to take it as a defense, as this is everything that they've always feared, right? That the Democrats are finally coming for them, and now we have to take action, right? That is like the clearest clarion call for violence I've ever seen.
Okay. Then we go to that stage if that's what they want. If that's how they feel.
Okay.
Dude, that's so fucking dumb. Like 9.9 times out of 10, liberals would lose a civil war. That's like the fucking stupidest shit I've ever heard.
Not me with my fucking Anaconda Colt 44, motherfuckers. I'm showing up. Gonna take me a little bit longer to reload and fire off successive shots, but I'll just,
Okay, what?
Seriously? Okay, so a quarter of the population gets disbarred because we're still in the political toxicity. Or a quarter of the representatives get disbarred. They use that as a clarion call in order to rally the troops, saying, left-wing authoritarianism has finally come to America. Obama is, in the Jade Helm bunker about to launch nukes and 5G internet and all that bullshit. They get hundreds of thousands of motherfuckers to walk
I saw about the National Guard's members. We're keeping an eye on that.
on Congress, and then boom, we're in an actual shooting civil war. You think liberals win that? What the fuck are we talking
Don't we have
about?
all like the gang committing people with the pistols, and aren't Republicans like fat and
They're
dying
not
and they're
very
larger targets
accurate.
anyway?
They're not particularly good shooters. Sorry to the blacks.
Well,
What are we doing here? Am I getting TOS here?
excuse me, all of our trans Tifa, trans furry people seem to be quite adept shooters. If I recall recent history correctly.
Oh my God. Do I need to fast forward this part?
0.6% of the population. So what? You're gonna have trans Tifa snipers.
Can I just?
I'll say one last thing about I'll still do Sacks in the promise, right? I just and I apologize because I keep interrupting you, but Destiny, my problem is there is no path within your framework that you're presenting for reintegration, because that's how you actually heal a divided society, right?
We thought that after Reconstruction, and I think it was a mistake. The idea that we need to massively, Germany didn't do that, and I think they've had a much better run with their issue than we've had with our.
The need for some kind of reconstruction was a lot more intense after the Civil War than it is right now. Things are bad right now, but it's not a hot Civil War, right? Ace with $10. A huge problem I have with lefty dialogue online is incessant quibbling over theory. The actual cause is moved forward 0%, and all it does is make debate bros feel like they have huge e-peens. I don't know if that's necessarily just limited to the left. I mean, you see all kinds of insane theoretical debates happening in right-wing spaces right now. Should women have rights is a normal debate topic in the red pill space,
Our, racial xenophobic issue. I think there is a reason why you need to have an accurate accounting process for what's happened, and the idea that everybody's allowed to come back scot-free. There's a reason why you don't run any type of disciplinary action program like this.
I'm not disagreeing with an accounting process, right? That actually should happen. If that's what you're talking about, great, right? But the way you're formatting this is that this accounting process means just a blanket accusation against anyone with an R on their name, right? That's the problem in terms of the elected officials, right? And they all support Trump.
Almost all of them. I mean, it sucks, but this is my country. It's kind of how it works. You shouldn't support fascism.
I know. Hold on. I get the moral outrage. I'm morally outraged against those people, right? But I'm talking about
legal outrage,
a practical and a practical sense, right? That the way to actually heal this country would be that.
I'm curious, and this is a question for both chats, right? For everybody. I do read both chats, by the way. I saw some accusations otherwise. What do you guys think is the most likely way that the country moves away from MAGA? Or I don't know if there's a better way for me to phrase that. What do you think is the most likely way that MAGA fails as a political movement? Consequences, accountability. These are very broad. There are legal consequences. There are political consequences. There's legal accountability and political accountability, right? Your question is incredibly broad, to be fair. Well, isn't the point of this debate about making sure that something like Trump never happens again? I thought that was like the crux of the conversation. Nick with $5, I used to argue that online debate was more than just political theater, but this fan fiction BS is making me self-reflect. I mean, this whole conversation just feels like memes. You know, we have to sort of read between the lines to understand what the conversation is actually about. Because I don't think it's literally about, should we do Nuremberg 2.0? How did appeasement work before, huh? So, like, what in your mind, what would be appeasement? What would be the option that looks like appeasement? There should be legal consequences. What if in terms of like legal consequences, there are very limited options because of the presidential pardon? I mean, that is something that you have to contend with. And I don't know if there are any easy answers to that. How do you force legal accountability if the president can just pardon everybody in the cabinet? Like, what do you, there's state charges? Sure. Yeah. But what would those charges, I don't even know what those charges would be. You had state charges in Georgia. Yeah. And in New York, those were state charges. A constitutional amendment. That would be the most ideal situation there. You would have to constitutionally enshrine a binding, you know, legal code of conduct. I'm not sure. The only way we could get rid of the immunity decision is by amending the Constitution, right? Them not being able to run for public office is a good bar. I'm just not sure if that's an attainable bar. That doesn't seem like, in terms of practical solutions, how wouldn't it be? How would you, are you taking Destiny's position in terms of like making sure that every elected Republican can never run for Congress again or run for office again? Is that what we're talking about? How is that attainable? How is that attainable? It's literally in the Constitution. Well, it's unattainable in the same way that like a constitutional amendment to repeal the Second Amendment is not practical. Like, sure, it's possible, but there really is that. Does anybody think that's going to happen? It's in the Constitution. We did it after the Civil War. You're talking about the, like, using the constitutional amendment about insurrections. Is that what you mean? Well, what does it look like, you guys? What are you talking about specifically? Get into specifics here. Are you talking about a more targeted thing against like Trump cabinet officials? Or are you talking about trying to establish that every elected Republican in the country can be charged with insurrection or can be deemed to have done an insurrection and thus blocked from public office? Are we really saying that that is practical? The combo Destiny had with Connor the next day was more serious and far less memey. Okay, maybe we'll make some, I mean, I would love to hear the serious conversation. I'm curious, forgive me if you've already mentioned this, but what punishment do you see as appropriate? Hold on, for the level of lawlessness we've seen so far? I really don't have like a legal rationale. I would have to ask like Pisco about like the various laws that he thinks the Trump administration have been breaking. But unfortunately, I think he's shielded by the presidency and the immunity decision to a very large degree. And so I don't really know what's possible in that kind of sense. Going away from MAGA wouldn't be good enough for most of these chatters, and definitely not Destiny. They want a single party state. I guarantee you ask them pick one rep and they would like as president, and they couldn't pick one. Republican? Oh, I don't know, maybe. We could use SEAL Team 6, for example. Talk about practical. Trump coin has a $2 billion market cap, and you're talking about constraints, Hutch. What a joke. I don't know why you're getting saucy. Are you disputing the fact that Donald Trump has been constrained by the system? Are you really not imagining the various ways that he's been constrained by the system? Like, he can't just will a like legislation into existence. He still needs Congress for that. He couldn't stop them from voting to release the Epstein files. He couldn't pressure the Republicans in the Senate to get rid of the filibuster. Like, he has obviously, the courts have checked him a number of times. Like, obviously he's been somewhat constrained by the system, right?
We do that accounting, right? Especially at the top layer, right? We prosecute a Trump figure.
Yeah, he tried to like, I have no doubt that Donald Trump thinks that he should just have the authority to just say like Brad Pitt and Fury, like shoot that guy. Or in the case of Comey and Letitia James, I have no doubt in my mind that his authoritarian impulses make him believe that he should have the authority to just be like, throw that person in jail. But obviously there are limitations there.
or Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth, right? We go after those individuals. But for the rest, all right, and maybe some other people a little further down. But for the rest, you have to give them a way to get on board, right? To understand, okay, this was bad, right? I apologize. I admit my mistakes, but I don't necessarily have to go to prison for that, right? And that invites
Well, I'm not talking about
integration.
prison, to
We've
be
done
clear.
this
I'm just
before.
saying, I'm just talking about people being disbarred from running for office again. If you have a different set of consequences, you can be some. Maybe I agree with them. I don't know.
I have a historical question, just because we're talking about Nuremberg. I do know that there were only like 150 150 officials that were charged. If you were just like a Nazi soldier, were you barred from running for office?
I believe so.
Government
I believe anyone who was
Just
involved in
wiki
the
it, ask
regime.
Grok.
Okay.
Well, don't ask Grok. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't ask Grok. Yeah.
I could be wrong though. So, but
Yeah,
I believe that everyone
No,
involved in the regime.
I think the
was
one thing
barred
that
for a
is
while.
like I definitely agree
Until
with
they
a
recanted
pretty
and
severe
repented.
accounting.
There's a process.
I definitely agree with a pretty severe accounting process, but I definitely disagree with Connor where he's specifically saying that like if this occurs, we're going to have like a civil war on our hands. I think this is such a cult of personality that the moment that Trump steps down, there's not going to be this sort of rallying cry that's centralized in any sort of way. But yeah, I definitely think that a blanket.
Wait a minute, would Trump? But would Trump will we even bother to trial with him? Because if all that Stephen is asking for,
Sorry?
he can't run for office again. But he can't run for office again. Well, he's already done his 2 terms, right? He's not going to do a 3rd term.
You know, there's some ideas floated that he could be like House Speaker, and I don't know. They're coming up with some kind of machinations to try to extend his political life, but I don't think any of it is serious.
Why even bother a trial for Trump?
What do you think the repercussions for Trump leading politicians or elected officials under the Trump admin should be? In a just world, then I of course I agree that Donald Trump would have been deemed to have participated in a attempted insurrection and prevented from ever running for office ever again. In a just world, Donald Trump would have been convicted in the Senate for the second impeachment. McConnell would have demonstrated real leadership in that moment and actually, whipped the votes on the Republican side to get that done. I do think he could have influenced the outcome in that way. So yeah, obviously that would have been ideal, but I don't really think in those terms. Before we talk about what I think should happen, I prefer to focus on what can happen. Like what are realistic consequences? What's a realistic way to get to accountability after Trump 2.0 is done?
Well, Trump would be charged with different things. His entire family's wealth would be expropriated from him and given to the United States of America. All of his family would be stripped of all their businesses, all their assets, and then they can go rebuild their shit in Russia or wherever the fuck. They can do it in the United States of America too, but every single thing would be taken from that family, 100%.
Listen, I don't even think this is a real conversation. I think what's going
It's not. This is a conversation about what would happen in a just world versus what is a course of action that is actually feasible, possible, practical, realistic.
on is Stephen, similar to Newsom, is plotting out an extreme position, and then he's watching Prime and Staxiums, who are trying to steelman his position, sprinting over to him, being like, "Daddy Stephen, can we do Nuremberg, but maybe not as extreme as what you're talking about? Can we just like, instead of incarcerating them and disappropriating them of property, could we just like, maybe bar them from office? Okay, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that." No, fuck your extreme position. Your extreme position is bullshit. Staxium and Prime Kai is trying to find a sensible version of your thing. It's a waste of time and energy. And this is part of what I'm saying is all you're really doing is, because I have a few MAGA people in my chat, all you're doing is the MAGA people are like, "Oh, this is who we knew. We knew Stephen was like this the whole time. We knew that he was a left-wing authoritarian communist dick sucker who was gunning for us." Dude, that all you're doing is you're giving red meat to the people that already hate you. That's all you've done.
I don't know how not to give red meat to those people, though.
You can't, because it's a trap they've said that Connor keeps falling into over and over again. It's where somebody's beating the shit out of you over and over and over again, and you go, "I'm beating this guy because he's violent. I'm beating this guy because he's violent. I'm beating this guy." And then as soon as he hits back, he's like, "Look, see, I told you." And then all the other people around are like, "Wow, you're playing right into that dude's rhetoric. I noticed." So when you hit him back, you're playing right into that guy's rhetoric.
Speaking the truth is never a trap, okay?
I agree that it doesn't, I'll just reaffirm. It doesn't really matter what MAGA says because it's not about them. If you're talking about some kind of mass accountability action, then you're probably going to need the support of like most of the people that are in the center. So again, it doesn't really matter. Like MAGA people, they're going to claim that Democrats are crazy, violent communists no matter what. Who cares? We already know that that's what they're going to say. But.
And by the way, like the reason why MAGA is being hoisted by its own petard is because it's done what you did, but it's painted itself into a corner. Okay. It has taken the base and shaken them by the shoulders for decades, that you've mentioned as well. Rush Limbaugh is arguably the beginning of this. And they've taken them by the shoulders and they've shaken and screamed in their face. The elites are all pedophiles. They're all monsters. You're being.
So the world isn't fair, but how doesn't this just slowly pull us towards Trump 3.0? I gotta say, guys, the odds of Trump 3.0 are very low. I think we're gonna have midterm elections in 2026. I think we're gonna have presidential elections in 2028. I think that Donald Trump's name is not gonna be on the ballot in 2028. And then we're just gonna enter the post-Trump era of politics. Not in the sense that he's going to totally shrink away or try to give up his influence or position as a potential kingmaker within the party, but we have about 3 years left in his term, and that is going to be the end of the Donald Trump presidency. You can't be mad that you're not threading the needle of your two takes. You even said you weren't sure if a 2028 candidate should call for your process because of electoralism. No, I don't think I was vague about that. I said very specifically that the 2028 candidate should not run on Nuremberg 2.0. And I don't even care about the ethics. I'm saying politically, that's not going to be very smart. In 2028, what's very likely going to motivate voters is like affordability shit, just like standard issue political calculations. But I also said that a lot can change. Like if Donald Trump like literally sends SEAL Team 6 to murder Barack Obama, then we're in completely different landscape. And so I'll have a different answer then, I assume.
Run by the globalists, the international globalist, post-racial, progressive, communist, Leninist, whatever things. They're all going to kill you. And what's happened is they've radicalized their base to the point that now, yes, they have power, but now they're turning into the leopards eating faces party. Well, at least the leopard is not going to eat my own face. Donald Trump was forced to, against his will, release the Epstein files because his own party turned against him in reference to it.
Yep.
So once again, you're trying to charge.
I don't understand what argument you're trying.
We got temporary electoral power.
I don't know what argument.
I don't know what argument. I think Connor is making the argument that I'm frankly making, which is there's a problem with this conversation. There's a problem because there seem to be these established premises that are just not accurate. One of these premises is this idea that Donald Trump is just like this unstoppable force right now. And it's just not true. Dawes Vidani with $10. If people want those things, they need to organize and convince voters to support them. Just expecting politicians to adopt unpopular positions because you think it's right won't happen. Yeah, I agree. There can be a grassroots campaign to form a political action committee or form an advocacy group. And the entire purpose of your advocacy is to pressure politicians to hold Trump accountable. Like you can do that. You don't need politicians for that. You can start doing that tomorrow if you want.
What argument are you trying to make here right now? I don't know what argument you're trying to make.
The argument that I'm trying to make is that you are trying, for some reason, on the verge of Donald Trump being politically irrelevant within a year, you're arguing that you should adopt and mirror Trump's rhetoric and political positions. It's fucking stupid as shit.
Because the issue you're running into is you're viewing Trump as a single moment, a single discrete moment in time.
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. We should spend our political capital on the things that cause...
Let Destiny finish, then you can respond. Go ahead.
Trump. Yeah, but Trump is also... One of the things that caused Trump is the fact that there is no accountability for conservative derangement. And there's never been accountability for conservative deranged, so they'll continue to be deranged. You keep saying that, like, well, we need to let people back. You don't want to prove them right. Prove them.
An unfortunate shortcoming of democracy is that sometimes voters make really stupid decisions. And I don't like their decision that they made in 2024, but that's the decision that they made. And I feel like this is a very heavy-handed way of like avoiding the possibility of voters making bad decisions. But at the end of the day, they made a really bad decision in 2024. And that just happens in democracy sometimes. And it's not tight and it's not great.
Them right about what? They say the exact same things that I say when they're talking to themselves, and then when they come to the liberals, they're like, oh, you guys can't do that because it would be horrible, and then they go and they do the horrible things. The difference is, for some reason, you believe them when they criticize the liberals, but you're not listening to them when they're giving strategy to their own political operatives.
Okay, so hold on. Let's say that you win this rhetorical game, okay? Is the remainder of American politics for the next 10 years until the entire republic collapses is effectively like a tit-for-tat race to the bottom between extreme lefties and extreme rightoids? Because effectively what I see is
tit-for-tat is not a race. Don't ask me a question, then answer it. You can answer after. You ask me a question. No, you're about to answer the question.
I'm not done yet. Thank you.
Let him finish and you can answer, Destiny, I promise.
What I see on the left
Now it's starting to pick up.
right now is I see like I've said, I've mentioned the 4 things that I think PF Young is right about that are causing people to crave political radicalism. And I see liberals in their desperation to go after Trump normalizing socialists and normalizing communists. And you are rhetorically paving the way through which they can use extremist rhetoric in order to seize power. Who's to say that the next Trump is going to be right wing? It could be some left wing fucking socialist degenerate piece of shit. So why the fuck would we make that path easier?
What was the question? I don't remember the question. What was the beginning part of this before you did this whole swear around and all this shit?
Why?
I think that's a good question from Connor. I didn't even think about that. If you want to encourage this kind of action, how can you be sure that the person that is elected running on that kind of a thing wouldn't just be an insane authoritarian lefty?
Okay, in 1 year, we're going to hit the midterms. It's probably going to be a Democrat sweep.
Oh, I remember. You were saying that I'm doing a race to the bottom. We've been racing to the bottom, led by the Republican Party. Saying that if you do fuck shit, there are going to be consequences. It's not a race for a bottom.
Fucked shit seems like a very, seems a little vague.
It's stopping the race to the bottom. Tit for tat is not a thing where you constantly go back and forth punishing each other. It's where you avoid
crimes that they're not even guilty of.
I do. I think they've committed insurrection. I think you can make the argument for it.
No. Insurrection means that you're trying to interrupt a governmental process through like violence or whatever. The people who are MAGA who support Trump, they might support a person who engaged in insurrection, but they themselves are not insurrectionists.
Supporting an insurrectionist is engaging in insurrection.
They are not guilty.
Supporting an insurrection is in and of itself definitely engaging in insurrection. That's what it means. If you're supporting somebody in a rebellion,
the 14th Amendment, go ahead and read me it.
Read the text. It says, or somebody who's aided the enemies thereof.
Aided the enemies thereof.
That has a very specific meaning.
If somebody legitimately believes in the MAGA bullshit, which I don't, by the way, but if they legitimately believe it, and they are supporting Donald Trump.
Section 3 says no person should be a senator, representative, blah, 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 blah. So the ending part of this is to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. It's the same thing. Whether you're supporting them or whether you're doing it yourself, it's considered the same.
Donald Trump hasn't been convicted of insurrection and they're supporting their current
There you go. That's the trial. Boom.
You're going to make it a crime and convict people of a crime for supporting someone who is the active president of of the United States, but also of the leader of their caucus. The leader of their party.
Sorry, do you believe that you should always unequivocally support the leader of your party just because he has the letter R or D next to his name?
Of course not. That's like pretty much.
Why did you just give that as an excuse then? Why is that your defense then? You're going to charge this guy? You think this guy's back just because he supports his leader?
They believe in MAGA. They're dumb.
Yeah, that's fine. And those people are enemies to my country. That's fine. There are people that are legitimate communists and legitimate fucking Nazis. Why the fuck would I care about what they think? I'm an American and I believe in the American Constitution. Why the fuck would I care about somebody who doesn't believe in the American Constitution? What a stupid fucking argument.
By saying that you are going to engage in the race to the bottom, I think you are paving the way.
It's not a race to the bottom. How is it a race to the bottom? It's holding people accountable for breaking the law and for encouraging and supporting.
By charging, sorry, did he say every elected Republican at every level? It would be, I don't even fucking know. Is it like 30,000? I have no idea. Jesus Christ. It is actually hundreds of thousands. What the fuck? Did you guys expect that? State level, there's approximately, apparently, this is ChatGPT, so take it for a grain of salt. There's the Congress, there's like the federal, there's the Congress. State level, there's approximately 5,400 state representatives, approximately 1,970 state senators, approximately 10,000 other statewide office holders, approximately 1,300 state boards. And it says at the local level, there's over 500,000 local elected officials. Connor tries to delineate this later, but he does say he would include voters. Okay. All right. Then we're memeing. Why are we having like serious debates in my chat when this is all memes? Like, what the fuck are we doing? Oh, so now you don't want to fucking hold Trump accountable? And it's all fucking memes. Like, what are we doing?
Supporting people who break the law.
But you have already said earlier in this conversation that you're effectively comfortable with fucking convicting these people of a crime that they have not committed. We do not agree that these people have committed the crime. And not only that,
and see if they beat the case.
Entire paradigm. Not only that, but I'm accepting this entire paradigm that what you're proposing is even possible.
Okay, Connor, wait, I have
see if they beat the case. Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Stacks.
Connor,
please.
I got a question. What would you do about specific Trump officials? Like, let's just use like Pam Bondi as an example, who has at multiple times skirted court orders.
Okay, so
Very harsh words. Very harsh.
Is it? What?
Sorry.
What I would need is so for instance, like let's get into specifics. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Okay.
Yeah.
The Justice Department slow walked / resisted a lower court order in order to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and they fought over the word of facilitate, right? Mm-hmm. And then they dragged it out for 90 to 120 days or whatever, and then they brought him back for some kind of criminal processing. I don't even know what it was. You would have to show me a crime that Pam Bondi or a Trump representative actually committed that is indictable and convictable. Because as far as I know, slow walking a court order is actually not a crime until you reach contempt.
Okay. What about? Sorry, just let me check here.
Just to jump past like hypotheticals. Mm-hmm. You need to show me a convictable crime. So as an example, with the drone striking civilian ships in the Caribbean, I think that's quite possibly a war crime. I think it might be a violation.
Hegseth is liable.
I think Hegseth is potentially liable. Absolutely.
So he should be convicted of a crime after.
But you need to figure out what it is, and you also need to process through a court because
there's actually a precedent for this. So apparently there was a former attorney general who was convicted after Watergate. So there is precedent for prosecuting former cabinet members after they leave their office.
Instance, like I'm pretty sure, what is it, Article 2, the roles and responsibilities of the presidency? I fucking forget which article is which article. But the point is that the president does have broad discretion when it comes to national security matters and when it comes to like declaring emergencies and responding to emergencies. But the question is,
I like how Hutch wastes 20 minutes after not listening correctly to Destiny. It sounded like what Destiny said. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, he could have been memeing, but it sounded like he said, every elected Republican who supported Trump should be deemed, like, it should be adjudicated that they violated the amendment about the insurrection. I don't know if it's with criminal charges or not, but, and then you would bar these people from ever taking public office again, right? But this is like obviously a meme. Like, it's just obviously a meme, right?
He directed his Secretary of War to take military action against narco terrorists. So you effectively would have to go to a court and argue, like, what's the definition of a narco terrorist? Who has the ability to even declare what a narco terrorist organization is? Are you able to use lethal force just for drug trafficking? You would have to figure all this shit out. And I wouldn't spend the political capital on this for the next 2 years or 4 years.
But all you're describing is the process. Is like you're saying that it wouldn't be politically.
It would be moral to go after the Trump administration. But by the way, the time to do that wouldn't be after Trump's out of office. The time to do that would be now.
Well, we are taking them to, like, there's multiple lawsuits going on right now with the Trump administration. I don't understand.
Okay,
also, we can't do it now because we don't control the
we can't do it. Caribbean boats.
We can't do it right now because we don't have the Department of Justice to charge or investigate these crimes sown by Trump.
Again, now we're kind of getting into the nitty gritty or whatever. I don't understand how Congress has oversight and yet has no ability to oversee or affect any executive action whatsoever.
Is that what they're saying? I don't even
Congress
think
can't charge crimes. They can make recommendations to the DOJ,
sure.
but they
they
obviously
can make criminal referrals, but they obviously can't charge it.
But if we're currently blowing up boats, then shouldn't, I don't know, Democratic senators, like this is the one that we bumped onto that's probably the most obvious. Okay, so let's stick with this for a second. This is the most obvious one. How come I'm not seeing AOC, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, or any of these people stepping up into Congress right now and saying, we're engaged in a unilateral, illegal, extra-constitutional, murderous campaign against civilians in the Caribbean, and regardless of whether or not these people are drug traffickers, this is like a breach of federal authority, and we need to do oversight immediately.
Well, hold on.
People literally been saying
Stephen, do you agree? Stephen, do you agree that bombing those boats, that would be one of the things you would charge Trump with, like bombing the Venezuelan boats? Like, what are the crimes?
You wouldn't be charged as like a war crime because this is a Rome statute stuff. We're not a signatory to the ICC. I charge it as fucking murder.
You charge him with murder. Okay, all right. Even though he didn't actually commit it, you're saying that like
conspiracy to commit murder.
Conspiracy to commit murder. Okay, I'm just trying to understand.
I'll put that back to Staxians. So Staxians, do you think Pete Hegseth should be charged with murder when the Trump admin is done?
Murder seems, I don't know specifically. Look, I'm not a fucking lawyer. I don't know what specific crime he should be committed with, but I do know that I've got a quote here. He said about the Venezuelan strikes that he has absolute and complete authority based off of the defense of the American people alone and refused justification. I definitely think that there's something convictable in there. I don't know what specifically that crime would be.
Okay, so if we were,
I feel like we are getting. Somebody in chat said that they just loop until the call in. So I don't know what I thought going into this debate, but I feel like it's pretty obvious that this was very meme heavy. We're not discussing like serious proposals. Can't believe I let myself get stun locked so many times by chat because this is just not a serious conversation. We did read that the 2 National Guard members have died. It's horrible. Horrible. Yeah. Okay. I have to call the gun shop and figure out all the paperwork and shit that needs to get done before I get my fucking hand cannon. So I'm going to do that, take a walk, go outside, get some fresh air. Destiny has become the avatar of liberal rage. Yeah. I feel like when I watch these kind of conversations, I'm like trying to do my therapy thing where I'm not reacting necessarily. I'm trying not to react as much to the specific rhetoric and just trying to understand what's underneath that. And I think Destiny is obviously this year has hit just an internal breaking point about like where he's just, and you know, to be fair, I think he has every right to be enraged. I don't disagree with being enraged at take your pick. There's like dozens of things we could talk about. All right, I'll see you guys in a couple of days. Enjoy your holidays. I love you guys. YouTube, I know we fight, but still love you. Still love you guys.